Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Look, Tanisha is gone, and nobody knows really what's going on. They're going to be waiting for the autopsy reports to find out exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. And Derek is freaking out. He does not understand what happened. It's just a little weed. He said it had to be something else. But he's feeling guilty. He's feeling the blame. And when he wakes up the next morning and his parents are sitting at the kitchen table, he's a high school graduate, right? He has to, prepare himself for the rest of his life, get a job and do all of these different types of things. And he's sitting at the table. Nobody's talking. Nobody's talking. And a tear rolls down his face, and his mom and dad, they reach and they try to console him, and they say, "Son, it's going to be okay." And he doesn't know what to say. He's speechless. Yesterday at this same time, his sister, their daughter was here with them. And now she's gone. And he doesn't know how to process that. He doesn't know how to process that. So he gets up and he leaves and he gets in his car and he's riding down the road and he's smoking that weed, and he doesn't realize what's happening. Now, his parents are just still at the house, and the detective comes by the house because the coroner is talking to them preliminarily. He hasn't finished with the autopsy. He's saying that if this came about as a result of the drugs, that this could be murder, right? So just as a preemptive measure, they decide to come out and see if they can get some information, because, the police, when they get to talk, when they're talking to you, they're trying to catch you at a vulnerable state so that you won't be censoring yourself or holding anything back. You know what I mean? Because that's the best time to get the most information. You know what I mean? When people have their guard down. So they're out there early talking to Tanisha's parents, asking them, what happened? Did you see anything out of the ordinary? Has she been acting strange? And her mother told the detective that, we had to talk to her because her grades started to slip, last year, and all of these different types of things, but she got it together, and then the detective asked her, why do you think her grades slipped? And the parents had no idea. They speculated and they guessed, and they said, we heard that, it's some weed, that people been smoking weed at the school and all this and that, but we didn't think a big deal of that. It's just weed. And the detective said, yeah, we've been hearing those same reports, but he said, what you may not be aware of that is that this weed somebody's been spraying it with different kinds of chemicals like formaldehyde and things like that to increase the potency of it. And that may have had some effect on her if she got a hold of something like that, right? But we won't know for sure until we get the results from the autopsy. And her parents sat there not knowing what to say because they'd never heard of anything like this. And out of sheer anger, they said, whoever did that, if this is what happened, whoever did this to our daughter, we want them arrested. And the detective assured them that if this is the result or the cause of her death, that they were going to do everything they could to bring the individual that was responsible to justice. The typical speech, right? But he meant it. And they meant it. Every word of it. So a couple of days go by. Chase and Derek are getting together, and, they're trying to move beyond it and talk about what they want to do with their life while they're in the basement well, not in the basement, but in another part of the house, in Chase's house, bagging up some more weed. They're talking about maybe going off to college. They're thinking about getting a job, and whatever it is, it's going to include selling weed too. Because to them, this cannot be because of that. But Derek, he's thrown off. He wants answers. Chase is looking at it like it's a bad situation, but there's no way it's because of the weed. No way. Nobody else has had any reaction to it like that. Nobody. Now, keep in mind that the drug dealers that put it out, they're keeping score. Because, see, this same thing has happened in other cities throughout the country where they distribute their product. You understand what I'm saying? And it's getting people hooked. They're getting hooked because it's so strong. And to the smoker, it's good. As long as it don't kill him. You see what I'm saying? So now, the autopsy report comes in. And it was as a result of some drugs that had been, chemicals that had been sprayed on that weed that she died. And they gave them the chemical name for it and all this and that. But at the end of the day, now they know. And they're looking at this as a homicide. Yeah. Because somebody gave this to this child. She's a child. She's a juvenile. And they want to know who did it. So Derek comes home and he's sitting there with his parents, and his parents are just shocked, and they're telling him what happened, and they're angry, and they're saying, whoever did this, we want them in jail. We want them to pay for what has happened to our daughter. Derek is sitting there not knowing what to say because he knows that it's him that's the source of that marijuana, him and Chase, that his sister Tanisha got her hands on and OD'd from. He don't know what to say. And he sits there and he starts shaking, and his father looks at him and he knows his son. He said, is there anything you need to tell us, son? We need to deal with this as a family. Because he'd heard the rumors too that he was selling weed and things like that. But again, it's just a little weed. It's not a big deal. Right? Right? Do you agree? So he's talking to his son, and his son is almost like suspicious of his dad. Now he don't know what to say, because now even though you may start selling weed and hustling and doing all these different types of things, you do understand, right? Most people understand that it's illegal, right? And most people understand that you'll go to jail if you're doing something illegal. So his instincts, his self-protective instincts kicked in, and he would not even tell his father the whole story. Yeah, he admitted to selling some weed, but he said that he had never given her anything. He started to try to create an alibi for himself and to blame his sister. You understand? For going in his stash. You understand? He don't want to tell him that he smoked weed with his sister. He don't want to do that. He don't want to be the villain. But what's the harm? She's not here anymore. She's already gone. So what's the harm in that? What's the harm in destroying her reputation? Really? So he's laying it down, and his mom is looking at him, and it's something about this story. It's not making sense. Not her baby. No, not her baby. Yeah, her baby was nosy, like any preteen or teen would be. But at the same time, if she found something, she would ask first. So she's thinking, no, if she found that, she didn't go in it unless she knew it was okay. So she started to question Derek. She said, no, you tell the truth about your sister. And we're going to deal with this as a family. But you got to tell the truth. So Derek, he breaks down. And he gives him the truth. He tells him the whole story. How he came to start dealing and everything. And he gets it all out. And his mother's angry with him. You killed your own sister, she says to him. And that's when the reality of the situation really hit him. When his own mother called him a murderer. Looked him in his eyes with venom. And called him a murderer. Now his dad knew that this was hurting his son. And so did his mother, but she was hurting. And he told him, he said, son, you got to accept responsibility for this. You got to tell the police what happened. We got to get who's responsible for this. And Derek looked at his parents and he said, no, I can't do that. He'll go to jail. And his mother, Derek's mother, said he should go to jail. Talking about Chase. He's the one that introduced you to this. He's the one that did this. So now Derek is faced with a dilemma. Do you do what your parents want you to do? Talk to the police and have your friend put away? What do you do? So he tells his mom and dad, he said, look, let me go talk to him. let me go talk to him first. So Derek leaves and he drives over to Chase's house and he tells Chase that he had told his parents what happened because the autopsy report came back and said that there was some kind of chemicals on the weed. And Chase looked at him. He said, man, so what are we going to do? And Derek told him, he said that my parents want me to tell the police everything. And Chase said, you can't do that, man. You can't do that. We will go to jail. And Derek looks at him and is like, why would we go to jail? We didn't know. He said, they don't care if we knew or not. They don't care if we knew or not. She got the weed from us. And then Derek tells him, no. You got the weed from somebody else. Let's tell on them. And Chase looks at him. We can't do that, man. They'll kill us if we do that. He said, we got to do something. It's either them or us. Chase looked at him. He said, man, we can't do that, man. That ain't the code. And he said, what code are you talking about? We got to tell the truth. But see, Chase is calculating in something that Derek wasn't even thinking about. Chase wants to be the weed man. He wants to continue to sell weed. He thinks this is going to set him up for the rest of his life. So he don't want to lose this plug. He's willing to protect this plug even at the expense of Derek having to lie about the circumstances. Even at the risk of Derek going to jail himself because he's getting ready to cut ties. See, what Derek didn't understand is that Chase had been getting schooled by these old heads that he's been getting his weed from. And he sees them now. I'm talking about put the pepper on them. You understand what I'm talking about? Crispy like that. And as soon as Derek leaves, he starts to clean up. Getting rid of everything. He calls the plug and lets them know. They clean the whole area up. Right? Everything is gone. No trace of anything. You feel me? You feel what I'm trying to tell you? So now when Derek talks to his parents and they end up calling the police over against his wishes, because he told them what Chase said, they force him to talk to the police. And he talks to the police and he tells them everything. And they tell him that if everything you say checks out, you won't have to go to jail, but we're going to get the people responsible for this. And they're going to jail. And he said, I'll do whatever I can to help y'all. And they said, well, you may have to testify. Now let me tell you something. See, Derek never met these old heads, the people that ran this field. He never met them. Chase had. They had. You feel me? So now the situation was dire because here we go with a situation where Chase is the star. He's the star witness, not Derek. Because Chase knows everything and where everything is and who everybody is and all of the information that a DA would want. Derek is just the key to Chase. Chase is the key to the whole operation. You understand? Now, they believe Derek. What reason would he have to lie and make all of this up? Because it's his sister that's gone. And these detectives, they've been doing this for a while. They understand. They believed him. So they go to the DA and they tell the DA the business and all this and that. And the DA gets warrants for everybody. And here they come. They kick in Chase's door. Nothing. Nothing. Not a seed. Not even a seed. Nothing. No trace of anything. They go to the area, right, that Derek described to them that Chase told him about. Absolutely nothing. No trace of anything. So the detectives and the prosecutor, they're pissed. They feel like they wasted their time. So they get Derek and they put him in that box. And they tell him, look, you're playing games. There was nobody anywhere that you said and no drugs at Chase's house. So Derek is looking like, what the heck? He doesn't understand what's going on. You know, he don't see the big picture here. He don't see the big picture. So they go off on him and the DA says, look here, if I can't charge them, I got you. You've admitted what went down, and I can prove this against you from your own words. Derek panics. They let him out on bond because it's a small town, like I said. Where is he going? He gets out and he goes to talk to Chase. Chase is acting all funny. He never says anything about the drugs. Every time Derek tries to talk to him, he says, man, I'm sorry about what happened to your sister. That's his way of not talking about it. And he never answers any questions about selling drugs or the plug or anything like that. And Derek starts to catch on. And he's looking at Chase and he says, I thought you were my friend. Chase looks back at him, doesn't say one word. But the look on his face said it all. Derek knew at that point that he was on his own. That he was stuck like Chuck. Simple as that. So Derek gets up and he goes home and he tells his parents that he's sorry for what happened and he's really feeling bad. And his dad gets the sense that, he's spiraling out of control, and he goes up to Derek's room later on and Derek is in a high. He's smoking. He's trying to forget. And he has a bad reaction. The same as his sister did. They rush him to the hospital. He's fine, but he's in bad shape. The DA is made aware of it. The detectives are made aware of it, and they think that this may have been a suicide attempt. But it wasn't. It was guilt. He felt bad about what had happened to his sister. And he just wanted to get away for a minute. And he had smoked some of this marijuana that had been laced. So they go to the house and they seize everything that he has. And they use that against him on the case they built against him. Now, in addition to a murder charge, they got a possession for distribution charge on him too. And they're not done. They tell him that, it's going to be, they'll try to get it reduced from second degree to manslaughter, but he would have to plead out and tell him everything in open court. And he got afraid because Chase had told him, a few days after he got out of the hospital that, you need to keep your mouth shut about everything that's going on, because the people that were in charge of the operation were starting to feel a little antsy because they had to shut down the operation in that little small town where they would always, come up with the experiments and stuff like that, and they had to change locations, and they didn't like the fact that the police might be looking for them. So it scared him. And again, he's green. He goes to his parents and he tells his parents what Chase has said, and his father calls the detectives, and the detectives come by and they tell him, say, look, we're going to go talk to the DA and see if we can go ahead and get this over with. Again, like I said, this is a small town. So they go talk to the DA about it, and the DA said, look, we're not going to make a big deal out of it. If they don't want to make a big deal out of it, he said, we'll give him 8 years if he pleads guilty, and we'll do it in closed court, closed session. Nobody be involved. Nobody could see it. And he took the plea. And he ended up with 8 years in the penitentiary. Now, he gets sent off to prison, y'all. Listen to me. He gets sent off to prison. Barely 19 years old. With a fresh 8. It's not bad, but hey, just graduated from high school. Life in front of him. What do? You're in prison. He's spiraling out of control. And if you want to find out how much he's spiraling out of control, you're going to have to tune in to the next episode, right? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I'll say peace, y'all.